Make a motion to start the meeting.
I will second, motion. Trustee,
Yes.
Trustee, yes.
Okay. Welcome all. The ordinance committee meeting. Just want to remind everyone, basically that this is an open discussion. It's kind of an informational meeting back and forth. Nothing's going to get voted on tonight or anything. Obviously, there's two of us here, so that nothing's going to get voted on or anything like that. I would also encourage that to set the dialogue for the meeting that we're going to use very similar format that we did last time. I'm not going to read everything, to be honest with you.
Thank you.
So we can maybe explain, what we're talking about and things like that, but just so everyone is aware. And then we will allow for public comment at the end. And then also I encourage to, if you have any type of comments that want to be given, you can put them in writing as well, and then the committee then can take them back to the board as well. So keep that in mind. First off, basically after the last meeting that we had going through the ordinance, we obviously had dialogue back and forth, and then we Earthrise give us a rebuttal in writing to some of the things that were in the ordinance, and that's what we plan to do today, is to go through and look at some of the things that you guys are talking about, and kind of go from there. And then we've gone through it. Vanessa, I'm sure you've gone through some of it as well. Maybe provide you with a few comments, and then something we can take back to the board. So, yeah. The first one basically would be under the 350.52 principal use, letter A, regarding a CSEF or USSEF as a principal use may be allowed only as follows in the three sections of tier 1, tier 2, and part 1. So we'll talk about that one.
So we found the 2.5 mile setback. If we know of existing solar facilities that are less than 2.5 miles from this location, such as the one that's just north of the old GM Foundry site. So the existence of that alone would prohibit us from citing this project in this location under those rules. It's kind of how we're seeing that one. If I'm mistaken there are no existing facilities within 2.5 miles, that of course is kind of null and void at that point, but we are, as far as I know, there's an existing facility within a 2.5 mile area. So, in addition to that one, this references that no utility scale solar is allowed within the first tier or the first half mile. So we do find that one to be prohibited as well.
Prohibited in what aspect?
Well, it's in the sense that it just prohibits us from being able to site our project in the area, wouldn't allow us to submit an application because of, what's the difference between the community solar being sited within half mile versus the utility? I mean, they're both utility scale solar, so they're both solar facilities. So in this instance, because of the location of the project being known and a good chunk of that, being within that half mile, we think it's something that basically prohibits this project.
I mean, certainly, maybe we're interpreting it the wrong way, but it would seem to prohibit any utility scale project. If you read them all together within the ETJ. So that's one concern. And then I have a concern about the 2.5 mile, I'm gonna call it setback. Because, or maybe it's a question, well, is the intent to have that extend beyond Tilton zoning jurisdiction? Because, I mean, depending on where you start, you can end up in Indiana. So I don't think that there's any authority for the village to extend its zoning jurisdiction outside of its, limits.
Yeah, 10 miles.
Indiana's at 7 miles.
So I don't think,
Oh, okay.
that's incorrect there. I guess, Dave, I'll answer that particular.
Well, again, I guess, I would almost offer the idea is that my anticipation for the nature of this meeting is me just taking a bunch of notes about the discussions between the committee and potential authorized comments about things in terms of what the next draft is going to look like. And so, that's frankly my perspective, is not getting into debate about what their commentary is listen to what they have to say. And if it's something that needs to be considered in terms of the next draft, then we'll consider it, but I'm not going to debate that tonight over what their commentary is.
So I guess, fair enough on that side, and I think it's easier just to hear it from the horse's mouth on that side. You've taken notes, and we'll go through that, so if I can't provide you with an actual answer tonight that's suffice for you, just know that it's getting noted, and it will be spoke about. Some of these things, honestly, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is or the thought process behind it, but we can take notes and obviously talk about it.
Again, so I guess then to recap on that, without, I don't expect you to give an answer. But the concern would be that, depending on where you start from, forget about Indiana, that was an exaggeration, but depending on where you start from, the 2.5 miles could easily extend beyond the zoning jurisdiction of the village. And I don't think the zoning jurisdiction, I don't think the village has the authority to extend its zoning jurisdiction beyond its corporate boundaries plus the 1.5 mile ETJ. So that would be problematic in terms of applying that 2.5 mile, I'll call it radius setback.
Isn't community solar 5 megawatts or less? And how many megawatts, is this one, this 1,400 acres gonna be?
188. I guess, to Kyle's point aside, is the intention for here originally to place community solars no less than 2.5 miles from each other, or is this like, does it blend together both community and utility, so like any type?
I don't particularly know the exact answer to that, to be honest with you. If I had to guess, and maybe my own opinion of it, is that maybe a stretch of within 2.5 miles, say if the village is 5 miles long, okay, and you have, for example, you have one on one end, and you can't put one next door to it, I mean,
Right.
you're on our doorstep, so we want to maybe regulate that. That would maybe be an interpretation, I don't know, but that could be part of the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on that paper? Is it something, is it the language intended to exclude transmission lines and related infrastructure within 0.5 mile of the village boundaries? Is that? I don't think,
That's in our board.
yeah, I don't think so either.
Okay, so, okay, no.
Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying, I wasn't expecting to actually run, I thought that. Look at notes too, so.
That's fine, right. Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, I'm just double checking my notes so I don't miss something. to be honest
Sure.
with you. Okay, yes, we'll go to the next one, which is, under setbacks, talking about the setbacks portion.
I'll start off with 1,800 and I'll just kind of get into the question. Yeah, I mean, I think in our response, it's kind of pretty clear, but, you know, we find 1,800 feet to be, overly excessive, again, prohibitive to the project. We found examples pre-state siting law where there were 300 to 500 feet in certain counties or municipalities, as examples. We certainly intend to design the project with extended setbacks, especially around non-participating homes, with regards to that. But yeah, we would ask that, you know, this 1,800 feet be dramatically reduced.
So as far as your extended setbacks that you're talking about, and, you know, if we recognize 1,800 feet is far, what's your idea of a
Yeah,
extended setback?
yeah, so this site, you know, we think is kind of going to require a little bit of a custom approach to these setbacks. Reason I say that is because there's more homes directly impacted in Catlin's jurisdiction than there is in Tilton's. Not to say that there isn't any in Tilton that are impacted, but it's substantially more in Catlin. And so, you know, if you look at our project and think of the north side, there's nobody living there. It's just the interstate, right? So we don't want to have to set back 400 or 500 feet from the interstate, for example. That could be a very standard setback. If we look at the eastern side of the project, the non-participating homeowners have a lot of vegetation on their properties that have already been existing there across the road. It's not even on the same side of the road. The only home that's on the same side is actually a participating landowner. And, you know, he's got a certain area of the project, and if we have to set back 500 feet, then, you know, he's essentially being cut out of the project in that case. So like in that scenario, you know, as I said, there's a lot of trees on the properties across the road. There is actually a great amount of distance. We looked at it this morning between the outside wall of any one of those homes and where this project may be relative to them. So that's why, you know, from Tilton, we would ask that the setbacks be more aligned with the state siting law, just simply because of the fact that there aren't as many homes. Now, there's a certain part of the project where kind of both jurisdictions with regards to the setback topic kind of overlap, and that's right along Tilton Catlin Road. And so what we're doing right now is we are telling our contractor to design a project where we maintain capacity and we can maximize setbacks on Tilton Catlin Road and on the western side of the project. So the western, kind of the northwestern area. So our guidance to them has been like, tell us what the maximum is. That's what we're going to approach this as. Is it 300 feet? Is it 500 feet? Is it 800 feet? And so what we're trying to, you know, really control for here is the areas where this is going to be most visible, where it's most impacted. And to us, that appears to be right along Tilton Catlin Road, 1250 East, kind of going east or north, going up from there, and then the east along that road that connects to that. So like that whole area, we're really looking at extended setbacks, but again, because of the interstate on the road north, because of no adjacent like property, non-participating property owners on the east, we would request from the village to align that with the state siting bill, knowing that we're really approaching this on a customized basis, and the way, you know, we can implement that to give surety to folks is putting those in there, entering into good neighbor agreements with them and entering those setbacks into those agreements with them. That would be a way we could approach this on a customizable setback basis.
Can I ask a quick question? You said there's a bunch of trees. Yes, I think you're talking about his property. There's one tree. Where are the rest of those trees? I drive up and down the road 10 times a day. Where are they?
I apologize if.
Okay, so here's what this is what I'm not going to have is
Okay, that's what I said, can I?
No,
I just-
it's okay, but the way that I understand there's some frustration and things like that with the whole project, but this idea is not behind whether we like it or don't.
No, that's true, but he needs to speak facts, doesn't he? I mean, he's telling
I'm
us
trying,
things.
I understand, I'm trying to get it out too, is that I don't want the dialogue back just between you two. It's one of them things, if you have a question, I'm okay with it, otherwise I'll shut it off and we won't have it till the end. Because it is a lot of rough to remember questions, and sometimes when you're in the heat of something, you know, it's easy to, hey, I got a
That's why
question
it's
for that,
fine,
so I don't.
then right there to ask one question.
So,
I just wanted to add one general thing as a reminder. I think it was in a report, the third-party consultant that the village hired had indicated that he thought that the 1,800-foot setback was excessive. As I
yeah,
recall.
that actually, just to clarify that too, is that was a professor that the mayor reached out to just as an opinion. We didn't hire that person.
Okay.
He was looking for some sort of information out of someone other than an outside source, but yes,
My apologies, I thought they were consultant, but yeah, I remember the last meeting, the letter was read or some. No.
Sure, yes.
One last question, not about, you know, participating owner, who, you know, they're gonna have to be far away. Well, I think in section 350.52 under D4, it talks about, the setbacks for, if a homeowner, or let's say somebody, participates in the utility scale or otherwise approves the setbacks closer, those particular property owners can do that.
Do that.
They can say,
Waive the
we
setback.
waive the setback.
Okay.
Yeah, and then enough if you have anything.
Yeah, kind of.
And one thing I guess I had down, a couple things, was that the terms were used out of this is outside the industry norms. And of course, there's nothing normal about this project. There's 1,400 acres of new industry that we're looking at. So just understand that both sides are trying to think of stuff here. So. And I think some of the thought process too is that, you know, that's one of the ways we can grow the town is that direction. So going to the half a mile and some of the setbacks and things too. And if you're on our doorstep, then it's not going to be for landlocked. I mean, so we have to keep that in mind too. And as we're going forward, trying to find a reasonable solution to it. Anything else on the facts? Next one. Stormwater and NPDES facility shall be subject to stormwater management and erosion sediment control. D8.
So we tried to provide we're actually having a consultant prepare a very thorough response to this. We understand that the concern around, one of the main concerns around this is its impact to potential groundwater. We would ask if the village could be more specific as to what type of equipment or activity is creating this concern. You know, perhaps it's the modules or the panels, perhaps it's something else. You know, the issue we have with testing of water, in addition to the reasons mentioned last time, which is there's just been so much activity around this project area in the past, and we don't know what can flow where over what amount of time. And so we don't want to be held liable for something that occurred from a zinc site to the east or a coal mine to the west. But also, this requirement will be prohibitive to our financing and insurability of the project. So we absolutely want to work with the village and the community on this topic, but we're trying to find a different way that still gets to kind of the same assurances. So if it's, you know, hey, we're concerned about cadmium telluride panels, we can commit to not using those. In writing and sign something to that effect. But I think, you know, out of all of the items in here, you know, the groundwater testing issue is the biggest issue for us. It's not because we have concerns that it would cause a problem. It's simply because there's an insurability issue because of these potential liabilities that could come up, as mentioned, in the future, who knows when, and because of what. And therefore, the financing of the project also gets into jeopardy. So again, you know, we would ask for more detail around what about these projects creates this concern and why doesn't some other kind of infrastructure investment create the same issue or concern. So that's kind of, you know, what we'd like to know out of this is, you know, what about our process into construction or operations and how can we mitigate that?
Sure. And as a follow-up, I think that last question is important for legal reasons as well, because singling out one particular use and making them do testing while not applying that testing requirement to other uses raises, I think, due process and constitutional issues potentially, because so I think that the village is going to have to do some homework on why that's justified. For example, when, you know, we're talking about steel and metal and glass that virtually, well, many other businesses, for example, are going to use. And so the question is, why is this particular use being singled out and not those other ones? And I think expose the village to questions about that singling out a single use as arbitrary and capricious would think.
Well, I just my personal opinion on it, when I look at it, and I think about, I'm not a solar farm guru by any means, but as you're going out and putting these up, one thing I can think about is, you know, driving, you know, something in the ground with 15 feet deep is going to be the first concern. So it's been farmland this whole time, and if you're taking fertilizer, pesticide, whatever is out there, you know, you're going to allow that to potentially penetrate the ground and get into the aquifer. You know, and we could go on for hours and debate that, and I couldn't because I don't know that much about it, but I'm sure we could. So I mean, I think that could be one particular thing right there. I think the same concern could happen for an area person that owns a home. What happens if their well dries up? What happens if it, you know, if something happens that their well's contaminated at this point? And once again, whose fault is it? I don't know. I'm not saying it could be yours. It just, I don't know. So I think that's getting everything out and about in the beginning. The samples and things is probably smart and ongoing multiple times is going to reassure that it's not you. You know, if it would happen to be a coal mine, for example. I think the same thing would be, you know, as far as your concern about singling solar out. I'm not here to single anybody out, because if it was a fertilizer plant that is going to drive 15-foot steel poles in the ground, then I think they need to do it as well. So part of this whole thing of going over it is to adjust some of our ordinances and look at some things that maybe we've never had before. And we're adjusting some of that stuff. So that's, I think that's what we're doing at this point. So,
is there a specific project that was going out there and that we didn't require that from them?
I'm not aware that the village has this requirement that applies to other types of facilities, such as a fertilizer plant or a grain elevator or anything like that. So maybe you do, but if you do, then I think you're gonna be in better shape from a legal standpoint, but I don't think you do.
No, we don't, that's what I'm saying. Part of this, looking at all this, with the whole point was trying to look at some potential problems that we have that we haven't come about. That's the reason we're here. So, you know, you brought up a point. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
You
you
might have something.
Good.
I guess from a risk standpoint, and I possess this extensively from a risk standpoint and done a risk assessment. I guess it's not so much of the materials that you're using, it's the process and it's the procedure that's being done is what the concern is, council.
Well, from a legal standpoint, again, I mean, you're singling out a particular use, and they established that aren't other facilities that have the same process as you're referring to.
Okay, but.
So I think those risks are associated with plenty of other activities and uses that could be cited in this area.
No, I.
Is it against the law to start that process right now?
But what I'm saying
I'm
is,
asking.
it's the technique that's being used. There's a difference between when you're drilling 15 feet in deep multiple times across something versus when you're gonna put something right on top. There's a difference in.
That's a question of volume, and you
No,
use the
no, it's
word
not.
drilling, and that's not what happens with these pilings, but.
But they're breaking through the soil. You're
Well,
breaking through all of the bedrock, the sand, the rock, the topsoil. Everything is breaking. When you are breaking through anything like that, there's gonna be compromise.
I don't agree with you on that, because you're also not look, I don't want to get into our,
It's
you're not an
not
environmental scientist.
Yes.
No, but I
It's not.
understand
And
And I can tell you what, all I have to say
You're
is
fine.
there are legal concerns, and there are other uses that do exactly what this facility is going to do.
I think it goes.
and I understand, and that's what we're talking
And we
about.
don't want you doing what we're asking them not to do,
Yeah, I
the way
agree.
you're speaking to people.
Okay.
We do have an ordinance, that says when our soil, engineering report when required by the village engineer. And necessary test borings and shall contain all the information listed about, the nature, data regarding the nature, distribution, strength, and erodibility of the soil. Conclusions and recommendations for grading procedures. I mean, this is already one of our ordinances.
That
It is our code under erosion and sediment control.
Sure, absolutely, but that's not the same thing as requiring groundwater.
So, to move on, noted,
Okay.
I think this is the point we get, so, yes.
Can I say something? Being in the agricultural business, being on that property before, it's very unique. A lot of it is surface drained. I mean, it's the water moving across the surface. And that is natural flow of water. And if you're in the fertilizer business, any other business like that would have containment. This industry doesn't have containment to contain the water from the runoff. That's the difference. If they would, I think they would be happy, if they're gonna use a certain panel, then they would have to be required to have containment, contain that water.
Well, I mean, they will have to do they'll have to pull a SWIP from the Illinois EPA that shows that the stormwater will not spread out, and if there will be an engineering study done similar to what was described, and if it shows that a certain volume is exceeded that's going to be disturbed, they will potentially have to install detention ponds.
I think you also gotta look at the recharge, because distribution and absorption rate is gonna change too. So you've got recharge of water coming in and being absorbed, so, because it's not what it is now. I mean, there's gonna be, in those certain spots, you're gonna have a buffer in between, so.
You cannot disrupt the natural flow of water.
Right.
what I have noticed is, trucks out there doing those, are you already doing some sort of soil samples or anything at this point?
That was the last time.
I was just curious.
Who's out there?
Sorry, just going over my notes to make sure I don't miss something.
Wasn't there 4 samples pulled last fall?
Yeah, in the winter.
Yes, yes, there was.
But the question was like right now, we have trucks out there.
Yeah, the question was now.
Okay, no.
No, not really, but we did have a geotechnical survey conducted at the level.
Yes.
We can- Thank you.
Anything else over there? Okay, ground cover and buffer areas.
Yeah, this one, I think is pretty straightforward. I mean, you know, in accordance to align with the Illinois Pollinator Friendly Act. The project would have pollinators planted within, inside the fence line. For these pollinators to be able to propagate properly, it needs to reach a height of 36 inches. That's what our real main concern is, and that's why, you know, in the notes here, we do suggest an alternative, like if you really do want it to stay at 10 inches, we said, you know, the limit should not be imposed until later in the summer after native plant species have an opportunity to propagate.
And I apologize that I'm not a horticulturist either.
Neither.
But if I got a 4x4 area at home and I go find a 10x10 bush to put in it, and I know it's not gonna fit there. So do they not make a pollinator that is 10 inches high? It doesn't grow over that?
I'm not sure, I do not know, I do know, what I do know about these pollinator seed mixes is that the seed mixes are approved by the state for the specific area. That's about all I know is my knowledge limitation on this.
So that tells you something to find out, to know,
Yes.
see, because that'll be a
Yes.
question if we can.
And we were intending to have our director of environmental join the next call or the next meeting here, so he could cover some of these topics as well.
Gotcha. How far off the ground are the solar panels?
It depends on design, but 8 to 10 feet.
Yeah, max still is 8 foot.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't
The
understand.
maximum tilt.
Tilt,
the-
yeah.
The panel.
What's the maximum? 8
So-
feet is the maximum it will be when it's vertical?
You can walk underneath it?
Till-
That's what you're saying?
You walk underneath them.
That's what I'm saying. How far off the ground will the panel be from the ground? The edge of the panel is tilting. This is the
Bottom.
panel. And here's the ground. How are we? What's the?
If it's completely flat, let's say.
5 to 6 feet off the ground?
5 to 6 feet off the ground.
Okay. So if it's tilted, then it's up, do we take it
It'll
down
be
further?
about 7, 8 feet.
That's right. So from the ground to the bottom of the panel, whether it's tilted or laying flat, is gonna be 5 to 7 feet.
I mean, if it's tilted like this, then the bottom becomes this part, I guess, which is gonna be less than 5 feet at that point, maybe 4 in that case when it's fully tilted down, I'm not sure, but if it's flat like this, then that's the 5-foot level.
Got it.
For a big here, so.
Gotcha. I even thought about something different, like if we had, inside is a certain height, outside is a certain height of the fenced area. For example, could be a compromise potentially.
It could be, I think, if it doesn't jeopardize this like Illinois Pollinator Friendly Act for the project. I'm not there's a scorecard for it. And I'm not sure if the outside the fence area is scored within that criteria. If it's not, then yes, to your question. If it is, then we need to look into that.
Yeah, and one thing additionally, we met with the Soil and Water Conservation District last week, and they mentioned that they are often involved in approving and reviewing the vegetation management plan we come up with for this particular project. So they will have, eyes on it, and they're experts in that particular field, so I'm sure that they give us their approval on that as well.
And who was that again?
Soil Water Conservation District?
Ruane County.
Yes, sir.
Anything else on that? Okay, so we're moving,
I think we're on D12.
yeah, I just make sure I didn't have something, because I did like you did and go through and have questions for you too, so that's why it's taking me a minute to make sure I don't miss something. It'd be D12, visibility, facility, designed to be screened from regional view.
Yeah, I think this one's pretty straightforward. It refers to screening in two separate places in the ordinance. One, if the project is to be screened around the entire perimeter, then what additionally would we need to do if some residential, development came up front, on any side that's already screened? So that's why we just found a issue with that. Because you're asking for it to already be screened, so adding additional language saying if a residential development comes up, you will screen it. Screen what? It's already screened. So that's all we wanted to clarify there.
Part of this rolls into other things, but this is some of my comment. But talking about screening, in the fencing and it rolls into whether it's a cattle fence type. You have your term for it. I don't remember what it is, but but if we stuck with a wood fence, for example, and some nice evergreens and things like that, that would help with that scenario too, where the screening is already there. It looks nice. Somebody, could build next to that and not worry about it. So I think all that kind of goes hand in hand, as we're trying to find something that makes sense along with noise. Because the noise is in there too with trying to help that. So, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I think, I thought with the evergreens being, 5-6 feet, I know that was one comment we had last time, planting these little foot tall things, and not necessarily did you do it, but we see others doing it and they're dead, after the deer feeds on 3 times and all of a sudden, nothing happens to it. So that's what I think we're looking at, trying to make sure that if this does go, then we got a look that's going to be appealing to everyone, moving forward too.
Okay.
And same with wood fence, who's gonna maintain it, because wood fence don't last very long,
We
especially when
generally,
you're talking 30-some years.
of course, the O&M team generally sources local for this type of work, so wall mowing, fence maintenance type work, is sourced locally.
So it'd be like for example, if a mall has, I think it's Atlantic is like goes over and cleans up the mall and stuff like that. There'd be very similar to that. You'd have a company come in and take care of it.
Yeah, I mean, and, we have a project right now, that started construction in Cumberland County. And we're meeting with various landowners about the mall for during operations.
We have several in Danville area, so do you think they have a maintenance type?
Community solar projects are generally, they're smaller, right? And because of their size, there's smaller investments, lower revenue, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes in most occasions, they won't have someone on site, whereas this facility will have anywhere between 3 to 5 new hires that'll be working from the gas plant just down the road. So, yeah, I mean, with regards to community solar, I can't speak towards any other company's operations, but my general observation on it has been that community solar sites are very much managed remotely in a holistic sense, with the exception of mowing and those types of things. And that's why you may also be seeing poor management of that, because there's nobody actually around to do something about it.
Well, it makes me think too, that just like everything else, that, you know, if I want my kids to pick up the room, if they don't, then they're penalty for it. So that may be
Yes.
something too that we try
And
to.
yeah, I think that's something we could definitely be okay with. You know, another good example, so we just went through this exercise at Gibson City. You know, Ford County required that we plant the trees prior to construction. We stated to them that, probably not a good idea, because of all the construction activities, and we'll have a lot more die out than what is already expected. Nonetheless, they wanted it, so we did it. That facility has now gone into commercial operations, and we just replanted the trees, right? I mean, that's your project, so.
Yeah.
I just saw the invoice for the replanting, so that's how I know about it.
Yeah, I mean, they were adamant about having the tree planting before construction. We did it, and then now we're going back and replanting trees that died off during the construction period, just to continue to be in accordance with their ordinance. But yeah, as it pertains to Gibson City, we're hiring a very professional group who working to handle all the vegetative maintenance during the operations as well. So it'll be, you know, there's someone very specialized in that field that will be handling that during the operations.
I have a real quick question on the fencing. You know, any of your Ameren substations have, you know, like a 6-foot fence with 3 strands of barbed wire. Don't we need barbed wire around that to keep people from, I mean, there's lethal voltages. You get past the connection of 2 panels, you got 100 volts, that's lethal. And besides the transformers that go up to 69,000 volts or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, that's something too that I kind of, I'm sure it's in my notes somewhere, I might have missed something, but,
Well, I'm looking at
Just
like, I
knowing-
think you guys are calling for a 10-foot fence, Calvin's calling for an 8-foot fence, and to me, we ought to synchronize on that, for one thing. Another thing is, it seems like you need the 3 strands of barbed wire, because any kid can climb over an 8-foot or 10-foot fence without barbed wire. Yes.
and I understand that, that's another thing with, you know, being in the country. You know, you kids go out and get into, you know, different things, or curious, 4-wheelers, or, yeah.
There's kids up and down the road all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, bicycles, scooters, electric bikes, they're all.
Absolutely. You got anything else?
I just have a quick question. If they were to bring in an outside source to maintain the fence and the vegetation, do they have to be union laborers? Are they union workers?
That's a good question.
Not the folks who are in charge of vegetation maintenance, but construction, during the construction period, there is a certain threshold of union labor that is required.
Is that something that something could require though, that they be union laborers? If you have the union force that supports doing this, I would think they wouldn't be on board with the non-union. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, we wouldn't have a problem with any sort of union requirements. All of our projects are 100% union labor, and we intend on doing that as well.
Well, 13,
13, yeah.
the glare reflection.
This one is, I think, is pretty straightforward one. They just reference to glare and reflection, so we just asked that there's one term used there, ideally glare. Or, sorry, more specifically, light reflection is the term used in there. So yeah, we're just trying to, remove some ambiguity there. Get some clarity.
I think glare is a more technical term, perhaps a term of art, and is used interchangeably in the provision with light reflection. So I think they're familiar with what glare is, Not sure what light reflection means.
So that's what we want is the term light reflection. That's what you're.
I mean, if there's separate things between glare,
If
then
it
you have
is
to
the same
define
thing.
it, but if it's the same, then just go with one.
Same thing as far as I'm.
Well, I know obviously some of that compared to that, whether it's glare, or light reflection or whatever, I know sunsets are bad, you know, going towards Catman anyway, when I drive out that way, but, along the lines of that glare, light reflection type thing, has there been any type of studies done? Or what, can you explain some of the studies that happened during some of this?
Yeah, sure, we definitely get glare studies done for the project. All of our projects, that we develop show no glare. That's our goal. We generally, if glare does show up, so what they'll do is they'll take reference points. So if we think of this project, let's just use Tilton Captain Road as an example. Maybe they'll have call it half a dozen reference points from that road at a 10-foot height level. So they'll take into consideration from that reference point at 10-foot height level, what's the glare look like there? And if there is, and it'll also tell us what time of day, is it the daytime, or is it during the sunset? Is it western facing or eastern facing? And at that point, when we get those reports back, then we go through different mitigation strategies. So if, let's say, something showed yellow glare to the east, we would maybe plant more vegetation, taller trees, maybe put some kind of fence screening in front of that area. So there's multiple ways we can go about mitigating glare, and it is one of our priority items as well, developing the project.
I know some of the concerns obviously out there. I had actually one of my employees wrecked on a motorcycle out there and lost his life, but, I look at different heights, obviously. So you say 10 foot, some, we got tractor kids, we've got, even doesn't have to be kids, but it be anybody, semis, combines, and there's all kinds of different, so I would like to see if, when you do a study like that, is to get the different.
Varying heights, I think we can do that.
I think that would be, especially for the community that we're in, that would help, I would think.
Okay.
And again, just to make sure we're on the same page, I would recommend using the term glare because, for example, the FAA has a regulation that says there can't be glare if you have solar panels near an airport. And they use, again, the term of art is glare, not other types of.
Sure, yeah, I can understand. I'm sure the birds get confused too when they're flying around thinking it's water. So, not a bird, but I think that, another idea. Anything else on 13? Yeah, so we'll go to 14, which is lighting. Or, I'm sorry, I had something on lighting. Sorry, that was mine. So, sorry, I'm gonna get off of theirs for a minute. As far as the lighting, so, I think just a few things that I kind of thought about was that, some of the terms of maintain lighting. One of the situations we had in town was a business, that had some lights, but they weren't on. And then it depended on who had them on. So you think of safety and things of that nature. So basically we have to get terms in there. I feel that you maintain it. It's okay to put up a light bulb, but you don't put a light bulb in it, doesn't matter. So that type of thing. And I'm, once again, just thinking of the things that we dealt with other people, for example. And then on 15, on the cooling system, I don't know a whole lot about it, but going back to that whole containment and runoff and things of that nature. In liquids, stuff like that, maybe that would be something, that maybe a concrete barrier or some type of retainment barrier around the cooling system, or something might need to be looked at or something of that nature. So, I've looked into enough of this stuff that make me dangerous, and then sometimes I talk good, and other times I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but I'm just saying,
Sure.
some of the things I see and just trying to bring up thought processes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the, you know, location of cooling systems for these projects would be at the inverter locations, and then at the project substation. That's where the cooling fans would be. Substation equipment wise, I will get more detail around how they mitigate these concerns. I do know that with the inverters, there are trace amounts of mineral oils in them. And to catch those upon any kind of issue, there's, you know, they have something that catches the oil under it, right? So, there are some mitigations to that, but I think I need to get a little smarter on what type of fluids exist within the substation itself, so I can address that better.
And then the only other thing I had on that was, I think it's from the last meeting, and we talked about chemicals and things like that sitting around, and a time frame of how long they sit, when to get rid of them, that type of thing. That was just something else, an example of someone that you had old oil in your garage, you know, that you train out of a tractor, you know, for example, and it's sitting there, it's out of sight, out of mind. It doesn't mean that it's gone, yeah, so to speak. So I guess that was kind of the thought process behind that. Yeah.
Well, I guess I've done work substation and so forth. Some of those transformers hold 600 gallon, 800, 900 gallons of oils. And a lot of the cooling oils more recently have gone to biodegradable vegetable oils, soybean oil. But some of the transformers have some really toxic oils that you don't want seeping in the ground.
Sure.
Okay.
So,
So maybe a good.
so I think you should require containment, you know, unless the transformers are definitely, using vegetable oil.
So I think that's something we could actually get into detail about. You know, the main power transformers are generally one of the longest lead items in the supply chain. So we ordered that transformer over a year ago. So what I'm getting at is we could ask the manufacturer about details about that.
I'm assuming newer transformers, I'm assuming it's using
Some kind of oil, but yeah, I'll get the information on that and come back here next time.
So some of it's really toxic stuff
Yeah.
that's actually hazardous waste to get rid of.
And if there is anything concerning in that regard, then, you know, we should be talking about, to your point, how do we contain and mitigate that, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you want me to chime in? I can, no, I can. So, on any substation that's designed now, it's not designed by local building code, it's designed by the National Electric Code. And there will be usually 200% containment with concrete. So if, let's say the transformer is 800 gallons of fluid, we have a 1,600 gallon containment there for that. It's impermeable, it's concrete. And I've been in the electric business for the last 22 years. I don't know where I can find a transformer that had PCBs anymore. You'd have to get one that was, you know, maybe 30 or 40 years old, the polychlorinated biphenyls. They just don't make them anymore. Not that anyone that would go on a project of this magnitude, all mineral oil, and to try to get one with bad stuff, I think you'd have to go out of your way and be deliberate about getting one from a less reputable country. But I haven't seen one in 22 years I've been in business.
Thank you. 17, power and communication line.
Just another clarity question here, just asking for clarity around, power lines running between what is it, inverter banks or panels?
They want the, we would like the wiring all to be at least 24 inches underground.
Okay. All wiring across the project?
Panels, all wiring will be minimum 24 inches underground.
Okay.
Those are the mayor's notes.
Got it, okay.
panels.
Yeah, that's, yes. Yeah, so, yes, you're right, so one area of the project that we would prefer to design where cables are not buried is the connections between the panels. So, you know, if they're in strings, let's call it 100 panels to connect all those together above ground. They're not, you know, they're like literally a few inches below the panel itself. It's called a cap system. They keep it, you know, kind of taut across the whole string. And once it collects all the power from the whole string of panels, then it will go underground and through to the inverter. I think, you know, if you could say with the exception of a cap system or something, or the connection cables connecting the panels together, yeah, we're absolutely fine with that, if we're able to do that, carry everything else. And we can show examples of this as well.
Where are the wires? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar. Where are the wires you said are gonna be connected above ground? Like, where are they at on the solar panel?
So, sorry for my horrible
That's okay.
example here. If this is the panel, it would be about right here.
So it's pretty close to the.
It's pretty close, maybe I'm exactly, let's call it a range of here.
6 to 8 inches.
Something like that, maybe 8 to 12 below.
Off the ground or underground?
Under the panel,
Okay.
yeah.
Under
And
the
then-
It's wire tied to the framework.
Yeah,
They just daisy chain between panels,
correct.
a bunch of wire ties to the framework.
Are you guys concerned about moles? Because we have a cemetery out there and there's a terrible mole problem. I'm just telling you.
I have a mole problem at my house, that's why I left, I'm sorry. I do not know about this area, but it's something to think about, for sure.
Anything else on that? 17? About the roads?
Yes, I think this one, you know, our response is really just more geared towards being able to properly do maintenance if needed. What we were told from engineering on this item is that anything below 4 inches of depth to clear would cause more damage to the access road itself than what it's trying to achieve as good before that. If you'd like a suggestion from us, we can certainly come back with one.
Well, what if we say something like not to exceed 4 inches?
My suggestion
Not
is,
sure.
if a first responder has to go out there and there's 4 inches of snow, and now all of a sudden they fall because the snow's not removed, now all of a sudden, I know I'm not gonna be happy. Let alone them.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess I look at it from, if you, to use your term of risk management, you know, plowing snow and maintaining the roads, I mean, that's what we do around here. We have to fill potholes. We do it all the time. So if you're going to, in a lack of any better words, put safety ahead of plowing snow and making sure a road, then I don't care for that.
Okay.
Would be my personal opinion.
Understood. We can go back and have another discussion with our team around this and try to push them to see how we've done that.
19, as the wildlife passage.
I think the concern with this one is the lack of a definition as to what a wildlife passage is. For starters, I think I understand the objective, but we're not sure how that would work in practice. And again, as I commented about earlier, is this singling out solar as a use, or would this be applied to other uses? So having greater detail about what a wildlife passage is would help possibly with the design. other concerns would be that the state DNR already handles things like this when it comes to certain categories of wildlife, threatened and endangered species, so you run into a potential preemption issue there. But yeah, I think that getting a little more detail when it comes to definitions, or using an existing definition that, say, is already built into the IDNR's code and lexicon, like, Illinois Nature Preserve Commission protected land, state parks, etc.
In response to, you've said it probably 2 or 3 times now about discriminating against them, but this is not what we're trying to do.
Yeah, no.
Open dialogue with them, but I mean, you made it clear, so I understand.
This would be another example.
Yeah, and I understand. But also, when you say others, here it says here, like residential subdivisions, grain elevators, blah, 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 they're not 1,400 acres, solar farms either. So when you're, you're not displacing animals, as many animals in something like that. So I get what you're saying, I know from a legal standpoint, but it's not that we're trying to single you out.
No, I understand, but you could have alternative uses in this area that, maybe they're not 14 acres, but they're really big warehouses. I mean, go up to Joliet, look what they're doing south of Joliet, they're really big, large facilities.
Sure.
So that's all I'm trying to say. So yeah, it may not be apples and oranges with respect to this project, but it could be with other projects.
Right. And that's what I was looking at from this standpoint.
And if any other project came down through there and we thought there were safety concerns or whatever, we're gonna have the same questions for them. We're gonna have the same concerns. We haven't had that, so what you're saying is, like, it's just, you're assuming.
Well, right, but I think you have to, and my only point is, it should be applied to other uses as well.
Sure. The other thing, anything else on? You're not.
I know what you mean.
On 20, fencing, landscaping.
Yeah, I mean, I think we somewhat talked about this already. I think if it just we just need to lower the fence a little bit to better also align it with Catlin as well. So the project can just have one height on the fence line.
Maybe Callan can raise theirs to our level.
Yeah, you could be that way.
Yeah.
I agree. It could be that way too, yes, indeed. And if, the gentleman's suggestion of the, 3
barbed
layers
wire.
of barbed wire, that's fine as well. Maybe it's 8 feet plus that, I don't know, maybe there's, I feel like.
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
one of the
compromise
easier
there, 8
items
feet
for
with barbed
everybody.
wire, maybe?
Yeah.
Well,
Compromise.
I think the mayor's intention for the 10-foot chain link fence is what he is wanting, is for pheasant and quail populations so that predators can't get in.
Okay. See.
Okay, and it's,
Okay.
and it can be his opinion, I mean, it's just like I have an opinion, that's okay.
And I guess
he could probably explain a little bit more, to this thought
Yeah.
process too.
And he also mentioned barbed wire.
Yeah, okay. And just so I guess we're all kind of on the same page with the opaque language, the intention here is to have some kind of screening around the fence, right? There's those fences that have the green kind of screening on top of it,
They're
or
weaving.
something like that is what the intention here is. Okay, yeah, understood.
Well, I mean, good point, so I personally like the wood fence, when you look at it, I know it's gonna be more.
Yes.
I know it's gonna be more
For those as
expensive
well.
and things like that, but it's one of the things when you stop and think about, your wind tunnel, your noise, your looking, all that type of stuff. Your best case scenario is that.
Yeah. I guess one thing to note on the higher fence plus the opaque kind of layer onto it is that that will require a greater wind load. So, you know, the corners generally of the fencing will have some level of like concrete poured in that area. In this design, it would require a little bit more, so just wanted to kind of like bring that to your awareness as well, but we're okay with implementing that.
Some of it I had on here, some of the fencing acts like a wind sail.
It's kind of, yeah.
So I get it, if don't the panels do the same thing or?
Yes, they're all,
Yeah.
correct.
Touche.
Yeah, no, it's a fair statement, it's a fair statement. I don't know what the wind loads of the fencing would be, but I do know that the wind loads of the panel system itself is around 170 to 109 pounds.
Just read my notes, sorry. And then as far as yes, on the, I know that you requested the, ordinance match the industry standard, but I like a little standard above myself, I'm an image guy, but anyway, the, 35% dead, I have to kind of agree, it's kind of hard to, there's no room for that. But I think with the right wording in there and things of that nature, that if it's, you know, it's gotta be, you know, you want to look at, it goes back.
Correct, we're on the same page here. We're on the same page here. I think we just need a better set of like how to define what needs to replace.
For sure.
And after I read this, actually, I did speak with a couple people. I think there is some kind of methodology to this. I don't know it. I'd have to find out again, but yes, we can do that.
On the, I skipped one, I'm back to 21 now, so this is the weed policy plan. What is your plan for weeds?
So all of the projects do have a weed management plan. Along with, you know, the vegetation management plan, dust mitigation plan, during construction, et cetera. It will be a part of this as well. So we will have a weed management plan, and if you so desire, you could come to the board for approval of that prior to construction.
So you just, I mean, like, are you using animals or what?
Generally, there's spot treatments that are done. I'm not sure about other kind of treatments during operations.
I just wondered, because some are using animals and sometimes you're.
In our, so in the project in Cumberland County, we are starting a pilot sheep grazing program. There won't be sheep there until about 2 years after construction, to allow for the pollinators to grow. But we are doing a sheep grazing program on about 160 acres there. This, however, does require, landowner, it requires a revision in our agreements with the landowners as well, so there's layers to it where it may not be fully within our control.
How many, I mean,
How many sheep?
Yeah.
How long? I have no idea, Tiffany.
well, I'm
Sorry.
thinking, you know, that could cause a smell problem. Yeah, if you have too many.
Quite possibly.
How big is Cumberland?
Excuse me?
Is it Cumberland?
You said
Oh, the Cumberland County project, yes, it's 150 megawatts. There's a total of 360 there.
So how many sheep would you have?
That I do not know how many sheep are needed, but I hear the sheep grazing folks for solar are doing really well these days and they can't find enough of them.
Is it sheep or goats?
It can't be, it's a certain type of sheep.
Can't be.
I don't know the type itself specifically, but yeah, it's like this one or two.
My question.
specific type of sheep.
My son was across from a sheep farm, and it smells horrible, especially when it rains.
You might have, you might have said, I mean, you just, you know,
Yeah.
Just curious.
You
Yeah,
said, so you said this is gonna be something between you and the landowners, or is that as far as them taking care of these animals?
No,
Who
it's,
who will be
we
doing all
have-
that stuff?
There's certain provisions in the lease that need to be changed to be able to allow us to do it. So there's a component of this that requires the landowner's cooperation, and some landowners don't want it. For whatever reason that they may have, so that's all I was kind of trying to refer to as like there's.
No, I'm just wondering who's gonna take care of these animals?
So there are companies, so there's actually a Solar Grazing Association, there's a national one, but I believe there's also one in Illinois too. It's basically just these, companies that have a lot of sheep, and they will go from solar site to site and put them out there for, I don't know how long it takes, I don't know if it's like an 8-hour process or if it's an 8-day-long process.
Oh, so they just put them out there for a few hours and then they take them?
I don't know if it takes a few hours or days, it's temporary, I don't know how long it takes.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
And then they collect them and then just take them to another
Oh,
site.
okay, I got
Like a
you.
mowing machine.
It's like a live one. It's like a bunch of
I
live
thought there was
mowers.
searching there.
Yeah.
I did too.
There's one of those by the creek in Danville.
That is-
It required different fencing.
It does also require height panels. It requires the piles to be taller, so to the question of, how tall are the panels and piles? In a sheep grazing scenario, they would be taller.
There would be a loadout, where they can, a loadout area where they can corral them. So, and then they graze so long and then they rotate.
Interesting.
And there is what they call a shepherd that's supposed to be on site.
And they're gonna clean up poo-poo? I'm serious, that's where the smell's gonna come from?
All right, so 22, noise level.
For this one, my recommendation would be just to stop after the first two sentences. Because the first sentence says that, regulated by the pollution control board, and the second sentence requires testing before, during, and after construction. The remainder of the paragraph is discusses standards that are not consistent with the Illinois Pollution Control Board rules, which are quite complicated.
I know,
And for example, sorry to interrupt, but the Illinois Pollution Control Board rules don't apply to construction.
Well, the mayor suggested maybe pile drivers only be used from 8 to 3 because they're extremely loud.
Let me go back with that, that may be possible if it's just pile drivers, but,
you're union too, right, so they're probably off the tree.
Sorry.
I used to be, I can say that. And they work on the Anything else on,
Not on this one.
the only thing that I had is that, I know I read where it was in relation to a wind farm, but, the noise decibels, having it at a certain level. And thinking of people, and this is more operational, I think at this point than it is during construction phase, but, I think looking at some of that, along with the fence and the other stuff, we can assist with, keeping the noise level down to below 40 or something, so.
Of course, and so as part of our application, we'll submit a noise study. And so similar to the glare study, our goal is to mitigate any excessive noise outside of the project fence line. And for the noise levels to be at normal levels. That, if you're living on Tilton County Road, like whatever the nighttime noise you're getting, you should be hearing the same thing. Which
What
is,
about the sound barrier fence?
I think the only.
It's a thing.
Well, I think the sound barrier wise would be more of go back to wood, wouldn't it? I mean, versus a chain link or something.
Well, that's what they got.
I don't know.
That's what they got along the highways,
Oh, for like the.
like sound
Or
barriers.
something.
Yeah, for the homes that close to the highways.
I see. And the big, with wind farms, they have very big turbines, they're always moving. So there's a level of noise that those create that solar doesn't really have. Our projects will be using a tracking system, or the other projects that we do use a tractor system that do have movement from east to west. But it's such a minuscule movement that it's not a sound that you'd hear from the road. The main thing that makes noise on the project are the inverters, and those are intentionally located as central to the parcels as possible, so away from the roads and central to the parcels. It's a key part of our project design to mitigate noise.
And just to follow up on your question about the decibel levels, the Illinois Pollution Control Board regulations, there's a table in the state code that lists the applicable decibel numbers. They're actually quite restricted, particularly at night. I think it's around 41, 42. The good news about a solar facility is that it doesn't produce electricity at night, so it doesn't make a lot of noise at night.
Yeah, like I said, I read one of the articles and stuff on it. Definitely interesting to hear. Before I get to 24, I had one on 23 on dust control. What's ideally, what kind of dust control would you be doing?
I would like to speak in detail about this. This is not something I know in terms of like what practices are used for dust control. What I can do is provide you with a dust plan that we have for some other project, like Gibson City. I'm sure we have one that we can take off the shelf. And
I'm just curious, is it water, is it,
I
chemical?
know they do some watering. I know that mainly there's a lot of watering done. Yes, I do see that during construction. I didn't want to speak more on it, because I don't know if these guys have any other methods that they use, but yeah.
Sure. Okay. B 24. EMF testing.
Yeah, so I've already said before a couple of times, I won't repeat, singling out issue, but there are lots of things that produce EMF. We're exposed to in this room right now. I think that I would just say that if you look at the, I guess I'll call them third-party studies that look at this issue, the setbacks from the project should be sufficient to make sure that EMF levels are low enough to where it's, not any different than surrounding areas. So I think if you're going, I think it's unnecessary to require testing, but it's also, I would just say if you're going to require testing, that it probably makes more sense for them to test, outside the project, where somebody could be exposed. And I don't know if that's the intention or not from the, I don't, it's not clear to me what the testing of 50-foot intervals.
Well, the mayor mentioned somebody in his family has a pacemaker. So what if somebody with a pacemaker gets close to it? Will they be affected?
Not sure, but I mean,
I would think that if they go inside the fence line, which they shouldn't be, then maybe.
Yeah.
But outside the fence line, they should be safe, because outside the fence line is supposed to be,
So I think a good question, it's a good question, because what if EMS is responding and that person has a pacemaker, for example? Would what cause something?
Right.
yeah, and that's what, that may not be a bad idea, there's a warning sign requirement. I mean, you're gonna have signs anyway, so that's something that would seem reasonable.
Sure, I didn't think about that, but good point.
To add to it is,
Right.
Ask a question, Mike.
Sure.
So the mayor of Newman, the former mayor of Newman, granted this was wind turbines. I believe as the story goes, has a pacemaker. And the turbines, the electrical energy, I can't remember all of this, affected him tremendously. So how, you talked about somebody with a pacemaker or whatever, how do we make somebody whole that is affected by this? Because you could say, well, it shouldn't affect you because you're outside of the project or you live so far away from it. But there are some of us that are very susceptible to sounds and light, energy, and that kind of stuff. For example, I could go in a jewelry store and most people can't hear their lights. I can hear their lights. So how do we make somebody whole that's lived in their home forever and ever, and maybe their well is affected, or their quality of life is affected because of this energy energy. And then I've read stories where you have electricity flowing through the ground, there's ground current that's not supposed to be released. And it's affected livestock, people, et cetera, et cetera. How do we make those people whole? It's not right for something like this to come in and then disrupt my life or somebody else's life.
So I've heard about this stray voltage issue with livestock before. This is from back then, when I researched into this topic, this is a problem of distribution level community solar projects. It happens with distribution level infrastructure near water sources. There is a University of Minnesota study on this topic. That's with regards to the stray voltage. I mean, with the EMF topic, I think first we need to determine if there is even an issue here. That's maybe something we need to go back and look into in terms of like EMF levels inside the fence line. I think we're all kind of agreed on the outside issue, but on the inside issue, seems like, we need to go back and get some more data with regards to that. So collectively, we can put something forth if needed or not.
So this is the first solar one you're putting up, the first solar?
It's the first time EMF has come up as an issue.
Is it? No, but I mean, is this the first time it's ever been put in? I mean, is this the first solar one? Because you guys got other solar farms.
For Earthrise?
Yeah.
No,
So what, have you had issues with those?
no, not in this context.
Well, if I could add that, so if this is set up as a special use, which I think is the intent, one of the standards will be that they have to demonstrate that the use will not impede the uses on neighboring properties, for example. And again, I think one of the things they'll be prepared to submit is evidence that from studies that show that once you get outside the fence line, I don't know what the number of feet is, but it's really not, the level of EMF is not sufficient to affect human health.
So, well, I'm an electrical engineer, but I mean, the panels themselves are DC. There's not a lot of EMF coming off those panels. But then the inverters, chop it up, there's EMF coming out of those inverters, you're close to an inverter. But then I guess my question is, once you step that up onto your transmission lines, you get around those things, you can hear them popping and arcing. Well, there's EMF there.
Not sure right now the voltage level of the transmission line that we expect here. I would assume it's more than 69, less than or equal to 138 kilovolts.
Yeah. You're saying
Yes, single monopole, I would just expect maybe 138, there. And I guess the question then goes to like, you know, what are the requirements for other transmission lines here? You know, what's looked at there? What's their process? Then, you know, I defer to him on the rest of that part.
Anything else? Working on 25 in solid waste disposal building panels. Last time you guys mentioned storing stuff in a type of a building. What's your average? I'm requesting that basically we put some sort of record keeping and time frame on something again, because I go back to the oil in the garage type of thing. And I'm just picking up on some of the comments that were made, that what's the plan do you store a lot of stuff, or do you get rid of it right away, or what's the thought process behind some of this on say broken panels or things like that?
Sure, and I think, so for our next meeting, I could get a very detailed breakdown of this. From what I know, you know, we store certain numbers of modules, we store certain other equipment on site. What level at which we store, I'm not sure, right? Is it 5% of modules, is it 2% of the panels, you know? That part I'm not sure about, but yes, we do have extra equipment stored to be replaced when needed.
And what do you do with the damaged ones?
Do not know. Do not know.
I think that's pretty
Like
important.
5
I
or
think so.
10 damaged panels, you know?
Well, we've had
I will
storms.
definitely look into that.
We've had storms around here, maybe you could talk to Kankakee.
Some of them.
What do you
Yeah,
do
no,
there? I mean, that would be, if I was in your position
Yeah.
and I didn't know that question, I think I would be questioning these people that's had
Oh, yes,
storm damage and like,
Definitely.
because that is a big thing. That's a big thing, is what happens to these panels.
I just want to make a quick comment. We asked that same question at September 5th, 2025 at the Danville Library. We didn't have an answer then, and they don't still don't have an answer. I'm just wondering, have you tried to train it problems, or what? I mean, have you tried to figure out the game plan for that, or how you're gonna do it? Because that's been 7 months ago, and
Yeah, I'm sure you get that question at every
It's just-
meeting. You got to.
It's, so, our first operating project is Gibson City. And that went into operations very recently. So, when the question was asked months ago, we definitely did not have that information. I think now that that facility is operating and there's an operations and maintenance plan in place, I can go back to that team now and say, and ask this question again and say, hey, what happens in this scenario? What do you guys do with this equipment? I can definitely do that, and we will definitely have an answer. Whether it's a nice answer or not, but we will come back with an anscer on this.
Okay, City got hit pretty hard, so you may even have some stuff up there.
Right.
did you have damage up there?
Very slightly, from what I hear.
So they would have had to have some kind of.
Yes, there's definitely a plan for this. Yeah, I just want to get the right.
Is it up, is Gibson City actually functioning and operating fully, or is it still under construction?
Its construction is complete.
But is it
It's
operating?
complete. It's gone through the energization process, which is like when they're testing it out and everything, and it's going to, when is it physically feeding into the grid?
End of May.
End of May, okay, so it's close,
Yes.
but it hasn't actually gotten to that.
No, they're just,
Okay.
they're testing it right now.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I can say there's a lot less damaged panels now from hail and storm events because there's new SCADA software that will ties into the National Weather Service, and it actually takes the panels and puts them in the wrong direction. So hail's coming from this way, hits the back of the panel, no damage, put it back to normal. So it's really just this year that technology has come. And so there's less stuff to get rid of.
So you're saying like Kankakee didn't have that evidently?
Probably not.
Because that was,
Very,
that
very
was a big mess there.
If you put a project COD, commercial operation date, anytime prior to 2000, this year, it doesn't have that. You can go back and retro it, but
So yours are gonna have.
So this one will
Yes,
have-
this one will have it, Gibson City has it, there's only really like two main companies in the industry that are doing this in a very good way. And yes, they do have, they call this the stomo, leather stomo. And this is actually becoming like a requirement from insurers at this point, that because it's.
That makes sense.
that's the reason, I didn't know that Emory was gonna put it on this plan, but I know Emory's gonna fund this, because otherwise you can't get insurance. So it's a negligible cost, it's software.
What size hailstone are those panels expected to withstand?
That's not an answer I know, but I can definitely get you the answer
I
for
can
that.
tell you, PepsiCo, their requirements were asking for like 1 3/4 inch, and there was nobody, this was 6 years ago probably, nobody made a panel that would meet that. They were trying to drive the industry standard up,
To that,
and this happened to be a fixed system that didn't rotate, so it would not get hit this hard.
and if it did,
But
yeah.
that's something you might wanna look at, is put a minimum spec on. Not use cheap panels, get cheap panels, because minimize the amount of glass you got scattered.
Well, it's tempered glass, so that's, yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. And we do source from what tier one panel manufacturers, we look at the tier one manufacturers, always looking for as much domestically approach, for the project in Coles County that's gonna start construction in August. That one is actually, at a higher domestic content percentage than Gibson City is, for example. So I just use that as an example to say, as the industry continues to enable domestic manufacturing on different layers of this supply chain, we are constantly looking for more and more domestic components here.
So where do you actually manage projects?
The panels that we use in Gibson City, so I'm gonna say assembled in the US. And by that, the steel, the glass, that's all US made. It's really the cells inside of the modules. That's where that's where there isn't a lot of domestic manufacturing capacity.
Most of that comes from China, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Yes, or actually like, Indonesia, Taiwan, Vietnam, right? Not China, yeah, it's like Vietnam, Indonesia, Taiwan.
I can't remember if I asked you guys this before, but do you have to follow the FIOC?
Yes, of course. 100% China. That's why, yeah, exactly.
What is it?
That's why there's no China as well. Like, that's another reason why there's no China.
Okay.
So where are you expecting to get ones for this project?
It would, without like committing to it, it would be somewhere like Indonesia, Taiwan, India, maybe Vietnam.
Becky, do you have something?
I have a question. Once again, I'm gonna refer to wind. Apex has a lot of wind projects in the state. And they, at hearings, will all the time say, if a storm is coming, the National Weather Service tracks this, if they issue a storm warning, they're going to shut down those turbines. There seems to be a disconnect, however, because they never shut down their turbines. So I'm hearing Earthrise say, well, we're gonna, we'll be in contact with, or whatever, the National Weather Service. But then what is the process and what is the guarantee that you're actually going to act on that warning? Because we know with some of these other wind and energy companies, they're not acting on the warning.
I think with this way I understand, this is one of those things I can make sure I understand what you're saying, but with the SCADA system, it's a program that will automatically say, hey, there's a storm coming, and we're gonna rotate panels to the opposite side of your.
Correct.
Require human intervention to do that.
No.
No.
It's actually, there's a Doppler radar that's set up, it's not actually national, but it senses it itself. And the penalty for not doing it is you got a bunch of busted panels and your insurance company saying, I won't cover it. So I know Apex very well, I don't know why they don't shut down the turbines. The Earthpride's not building turbines, and if they wouldn't do this, it would be the same thing as you leave your wife. If I left my wife's new car outside in the hailstorm, it would be silly for me because then she would tell me I gotta go buy a new car. And that's the same thing. The penalty would be pretty stiff, for not doing it.
Didn't you testify at Apex hearing?
No,
Did you?
I'm
There's
not.
somebody that
That's
looks
somebody else,
like
that's my
you
son,
that
that's my son double.
Double.
That's my son double. They were my customer at one point, but I've never testified at their hearings. A lot of guys don't have hair, apparently.
Grabbing a trim system on that.
Yes, I
Yeah. Number 27, facility ownership required ability to have access to the property.
Yeah, I think, we're absolutely okay with this. We would just prefer that it has like a quarterly cadence or something like that, rather than, hey, I wanna come out there today. So our O&M team can plan for it and prepare and do all that. I mean, I think, if the village is very adamant on it, we could probably do leave in a quarter, but I guess it's upon the request as well.
I think the issue is just one of notice, like giving
Yeah.
certain notice so that it's a safety issue, right? They want to make sure that nobody is injured.
But I got real property, I give them 24 hours notice, say I'm gonna be here tomorrow.
Right,
So,
Would 24 hours notice be enough if there was some reason we needed?
it would be, yes.
on, D29, it's not on the, but you go to your, there's just a word missing in there. It said that, I think it's the very last, it says something about data shall be on a weekly basis. It just doesn't, it needs to be provided or something. Just happened.
What was that?
Can we, I think just weekly reporting of this might be a little onerous. I don't know if we made any suggestions for this one before.
Yeah, nothing on this.
I think monthly would be preferred, but I'm not stuck on that concept. I just think from an
Sorry,
administrative
D29.
process.
The information and data shall be blank.
Shall be.
Just forward.
Oh, okay.
Some sort of.
I see, yeah.
It just didn't make quite. It's a typo.
What do you think report it?
Word gathers, provided.
Yeah.
Something.
Oh, I see. You're saying the reports on a quarterly basis, but the data inside has to be weekly?
The information and data shall be.
I think you guys are supposed to provide, gather it weekly and then show it to us quarterly.
Oh, got it. Okay, yeah, I wrote reported in that little blank area, so I think it's gathered on a weekly. So we gather the weekly data, but reported on a quarterly basis, okay? Yes.
Yeah, something just to.
Yeah, that works.
One thing I read somewhere else too, that, on these, this would be under, road use and things. On the road repair plan, especially during construction and things of that nature, is it, all the roads being used, obviously taking a toll with construction and things, so, we should be against improving the road after everything's done. So if it's, just to use an example, it's gravel now, going to tar and chip it, when we're done, is that potentially something, or how does that work?
So generally, we have the transportation impact analysis done. We will actually start that earlier on, around the 30% design process, but we will continue to update that as we get to our like issue for construction designs. We do that because the contractors generally figure out more, they get closer to understanding fully how many loads and at what weight is they're gonna be moving as we get closer, as they advance the designs. So all that being said, you know, generally the process that we go about it is, road commissioners will assess, we'll use an outside consulting company. Generally, we ask the road commissioner if they have a preference in a company that we should use for that work, that they use as well, so that they trust. At which point, you know, we'll execute the road use agreement, and generally the process with that is we will take video footage and photo footage of the roads before our traffic activity has begun. If there is any, from the transportation impact analysis, if there's any roads that were identified as needing to be upgraded to carry that load, that'll be a part of the pre-construction road work. So we'll come in and we'll do whatever work we need to do on the roads that we'll be using to handle those loads. And then, of course, we have during construction maintenance requirements to keep the roads in good condition. And then afterwards, we will also have a post-construction repair scope as well. To your question, more specifically, there are certain scenarios where, yes, we've kind of come in and created a better road than what we found before.
We got letter F, special use permit.
Yes.
Yeah, going to E, but F.
This is the one about recycling, I think. So, I mean, on this one, it's, you know, we don't know how we can enter into a recycling agreement for a job that's gonna be done 35 years from now. How do they even price that for us? How does that even happen? That's the first question. Now, are there solar module recyclers out there? Yes, there are. Were they there 10 years ago? Maybe you could find one somewhere, maybe in Arizona. There's a few now. I mean, there's not like dozens of these companies anyway. There's some out there. They are doing the recycling work. And, you know, there isn't really many utility scale, you know, solar power plants that have been decommissioned yet. So all that is to say that, you know, there is this market, it's starting to grow, it's getting mature. A lot of the equipment that is going to recycling in these modules, it's, you know, glass, steel, plastics. The main part is recycling to sell. That's the big issue there. I mean, I think, you know, we could try to commit to some language that, you know, doesn't tie us to having this before the SUP, but, you know, that'll say like best efforts to do a recycling agreement close to decommissioning. But yeah, we just don't think it's even possible to get this kind of agreement in place right now.
So I guess my question would be is then what about with your recent gifts to the city, where will those go?
So they, I mean, for, you know,
And that's only been a commission how long? I mean,
it's not even,
happening.
yeah, exactly. So they wouldn't
be domain.
enter into that right now, yeah.
So, I mean, what are you gonna, if you don't have an agreement, or that's not been a proactive thing that's been put in place, how do you know where you're gonna, I mean, and what, say that even if there's only minimal or there's few, what if it was the whole entire project? What would that look like? I mean, and you're now sitting here trying to figure out where you're gonna take these.
I'm sure there's damage panels that, from the construction, also showed up damaged, and where are they going?
Because I would share the same thing that you had, you know, like you're saying, hey, it's hard to give the, you know, an estimate in 35 years. It's also hard for me to say, well, in 35 years, now it's your problem. You know, I want to make sure that we have something in place. You know, if I'm not here, I'm probably going to sit on this board in 35 years. don't plan on.
I mean, what I know about these is that, the manufacturers of the panels guarantee still 82.5% efficiency after 35 years. So there is a secondary market for these. I mean, yeah, what if there's a buyer in, I don't know, some African country or something that wants this project's panels in 35 years because of their efficiency? And why would we tie ourselves into a recycling group agreement 35 years before that? I mean, I think, of course, yeah, the intention is to get rid of the equipment in a acceptable way, but we just don't see how we can contract recycling specifically 35 years from now.
But can you
There
contract
could
it
be
now?
some kind of use for it as well. It's not like it has to be recycled and, thrown away.
Well, I think the biggest concern is you guys have no answer for if something was damaged today. You don't have no answers on where
That
this stuff is
answer
gonna go.
is an answer I'm gonna get you next week, because.
I hope so, because this is like, I don't know how many
meetings.
meetings I've been at, and I've seen you guys never have an answer. Because, you rent a building out for a party, one of the big things you're gonna wanna know is who's cleaning this stuff up? You know what I'm saying? That's a big part of a project.
And
is
that's a part of the
the end.
decommissioning plan, right? Like, that's what the decommissioning plan, decommissioning
Well, no, I'm not-
plan is for. I mean, if we're talking about cleaning it up,
I'm talking about
You know.
when there's damage.
what happens
In-
after it leaves is a different thing.
And
No.
panels fail over time. You have to,
Yeah.
they do, every year they're gonna do fly a drone over, and they'll tell you which panels are put down, which ones aren't, and they'll be replacing panels a few years down the road.
So this is 35.
That's without a hailstorm or windstorm or tornado. It's gonna create a big mess.
And that's our biggest thing, is there's no answers to if something happened today.
Well, that's what I was alluding to, is that, you think storage a building somewhere, and what's the plan to, it's hard to, you don't have the answer for that. I know you're gonna get it, and I appreciate that, and I would look forward to it.
It's almost like this project, all you guys do is focus on getting them in and getting them running. You don't focus on any of the effects of it. That's what the problem is.
So in 35 years, my grandchildren will be in their early to mid-40s and families of their own. What are we leaving for them? That's the big question. What are we leaving for future generations to have to clean up or deal with? It would be like anyone in this room, if your grandparents went and did some big project, and then you inherited stuff, and you inherit holding mass. What do you do with it? You don't have the money, because your grandpa got the money from it, but you inherit the money. So I know they have decommissioning plans, but I don't think that's a guarantee. So that is the big question. I totally agree with you there. What is the end result that we can't see?
You can't make 35 years either. I mean, you gotta have that from the start, day one. You could have a faster fee day two. When you're putting it up, could happen. Well, just like you said with Gibson City, it's not even up and running.
Where's Jasper, Indiana?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't know. There's no, you can't say 35 years from now is when the problem's gonna arise.
So in respect to, you mentioned that you will get us that, so we'll look forward to that.
Okay, great.
Couple things as far as I have before we jump to Kay. Are any of the employees that would be employed even at Gibson City for this matter, certified in fire training or on site at all times or anything? 'Cause I know some of the conversation we had before, and I didn't get anything from my fire chief as far as a report, so I apologize for them not getting that and having all the information. But we talked about, trying to get on site and you were gonna bring them to the fence, for example, stuff like that, if somebody's hurt or anything. So is there training, or what's the thought process behind all that?
So we do have a training program that is happening off. It's not an Earthrise specific program. It's It's run by, this old fire chief somewhere up in Will County area, I'm not quite sure. But they do 1 week trainings in Florida for solar power plants specifically. So we do have that, that we can look into as well. What else do you want?
I mean, the application comes with an emergency response plan. That plan is developed in coordination with local fire departments and local police departments so that they are aware of what the project is and what sort of procedures there are behind the project. And even before then, we will meet with fire departments to explain the project and understand what sort of needs they have. I know with Gibson City, they said that they need specific types of extra equipment to deal with fire safety. And those are conversations we'll continue to have so that they are well equipped. To answer your question about whether it be police, we'll have that specific fire training. They will not be like, you know, they're not part of the local fire department or anything like that, but they will have the knowledge of the emergency response plan, as well as like basic first aid in order to like carry out their job appropriately.
So what, if Gibson City, I don't know if they have a full-time fire department, but what is the plan when we all have volunteer fire departments and there are no volunteer firemen able to respond to a call? What is going to be the protocol? How do we address this situation?
And I think that's along the lines of some of the questions I'm asking, because in all due respect to area departments, Tilton is usually the first ones on scene. So a lot of times when I hear we had conversations and things, and like I said, I had an internal problem with not getting information, but as a board member and a resident of Tilton, I need to make sure things are in place that, you know, our department is going to be out there, more than likely first on scene, even though it's somebody else's area. We mutual aid with stuff all the time, and we're the first engine at many places, because of our team. So that's some of my concerns, and just so you understand where I'm coming from some of the questions. As far as, I don't know the location as far as with Gibson City or anything, but anything that you've looked at before, but as far as cemeteries and sacred places and things of that nature, what's the thought process behind there? Have you had anything?
We've conducted a lot of different environmental studies, cultural being one of them, that identify cemeteries. Some developers may choose to develop on top of things like wetlands, but earth rises, what's unique about earth rises, we go full avoidance, so full avoidance of cemeteries, and in fact, we set back from cemeteries. We completely avoid developing on top of wetlands, and we avoid areas of cultural significance as well.
How far are your setbacks from cemeteries normally?
They'll typically be about 50 to 100 feet from this.
50 to 100?
Because we have a cemetery, and about 15 years ago, our mayor went down in there, and what was it, about 100 feet away from the cemetery, he found some graves.
More graves.
Yes.
There's like 2 cemeteries out there. Long, and there's a small private. Oh, yeah, of course.
And I mean, this kind of borders our cemetery, that's why I asked.
Yeah, I know, I'm aware, and I've run into this situation, unfortunately.
You dig up graves or no?
No.
All work stops for a really long time.
That's a good thing.
I don't know one thing, right? I noticed that I've noticed anyway, when I went down 74, is the bald eagles. And there's a couple real close. So I don't know if there's anything in your plans, or if you've already looked at some of that, if there's, you know.
We run a threatened endangered species report. In addition, I know you've seen the footprint, and it's adjacent to some areas that are forested. We're not intending on cutting down any trees or destroying any existing habitat for this project.
No, there
And there are procedures in place, like if a nest is found, et cetera, that are regulated at the state level. Which require like setbacks, et cetera, stop work in that area, that kind of thing.
How far is the setback from an active nest?
That I do not know, ma'am. That's a,
Could you
definitely
find
a
out?
question.
Could you find
That's a
out?
question that could definitely be answered next time for sure.
Depends on the species.
No, bald
Like bald
eagle,
eagle,
or golden eagle, either one of these.
not pigeons, crows.
There's also brown bats that are protected.
Yeah, bats.
They have to do a study for it.
But actually, eagles,
All of that is heavily regulated. They have to go through U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as well as DNR.
Sure, I was just curious, because like I said, I see.
I understand that, I just wanna know, I think on a turbine, it might be a mile and a half, or not, unless they change that. And I was wondering on solar, what the setback is.
Well, there's also,
That would make sense, I guess, for a turbine,
I think.
because of the movement and everything, yeah.
minor, but I know you mentioned about being by 74. Actually, they're out there in the field all the time, I mean, quite often, so I don't know if they're.
And that's right there in my driveway.
Yeah, they're out there, especially at the end of harvest. I mean, I know there was probably, and I've got a picture of it just not too long ago where it took there was 3 or 4 right there in the field.
Moving on to, letter K, special use permit. Drainage tile.
So just a couple issues on this one. I think I addressed it at the last meeting. The first one is that there's a requirement to get approval from the neighboring landowner under the Illinois Drainage Code. If I want to put in a new drain tile as a mutual drain, I mean, I can, if I have to, I can go to, under certain circumstances, there's statutory provisions that allow me to go to court to require the neighbor to allow me to go over their property to drain them. So getting approvals, I don't think, I would just ask you to check and make sure that's consistent with the Illinois Drainage Code. The second issue that I think I addressed previously was that in terms of repairing drain tile or making sure they're proper gradients, during the operation of the facility, the AMA allows for the project to reroute the drain tile around out to the perimeter of the project. The flow has to be maintained, right? The existing flow has to be substantially maintained, but it contemplates that that you may end up interfering with the existing drain tile system. That's why the drain, it contemplates that the system would be redesigned so that it flows around the facility to accommodate the existing flow. And so I just want to make sure that this provision doesn't conflict with that provision in the AIM.
So you're saying basically if I have a field that runs straight through it, your AIMA will tell you that you can stop it on this part, run it around here and connect it to the other side.
Yeah, well,
In theory.
I mean, yes, but most of the time, if you've got a main tile line, it'll be avoided. They'll keep a lane for it. But for the laterals, especially if they're old and made of clay, they may just end up making them obsolete and design another tile system that goes around the perimeter of the project. And again, if you read the language in the AIMA, it expressly allows for that. And that's all I'm saying is, let's not do something here that that it interferes with the ability that what the AIMA allows.
It doesn't have a tile of agricultural field. They run lap,
If I went in.
I mean, we'll talk to the Illinois Farm Bureau because they drafted that language.
If I went in on a main and or laterals with someone who put a project on their property, and the main or laterals that I helped pay for were damaged, I would want them fixed yesterday. Plus, I would want them fixed by someone of my choosing, not by someone of that project's choosing.
As I said, the flow has to be maintained under the Illinois Drainage Code. The landowner or the project would have an obligation to maintain that flow. So,
And I speak from experience, my son's experience, he worked on a wind farm for a while. When they.
it's
cut-
different.
I know, well,
Okay, go ahead.
I
Yeah,
know,
sorry.
just please let me finish. When they cut the tiles, and he had a fit, he was instructed, you are just to fill them in. That's why I made the point, if my tiles were cut or my main laterals, I would want a say-so on who was repairing.
And I think that's a lot of trust in that, so, but anyway, go ahead with
All I'm asking is to make sure it's consistent with what's allowed in the AMA, because that's required by state. The AMA doesn't know. And it's, and the solar, and this is what I want to say. The solar AMA language is different from the wind AMA language. Again, the wind AMA does not allow, it has to be repaired within, I think, 14 days. The solar AMA allows, it gives an option to go around the perimeter of the different parts of it.
But how long do they have to have it repaired?
Again, it gets, at the end of the day, there's another provision that covers deconstruction. I mean, I would just encourage you to read the solar AMA, but there's another provision that covers deconstruction that requires repair, et cetera. But
Aren't you here to answer
that's-
questions though?
What's that?
That was a legal question she asked, I believe, and I thought that's what you were here for, instead of telling her to go read something.
Well, I mean, if you would like, I mean, I'd love to have a legal discussion.
I can answer, it'll be repaired immediately. Like, I know the people that I'm associated with, nobody's gonna leave a drain towel. And I don't think, I mean, you'd have any problem putting in there the ordinance, so if you bring a drain towel,
And you know, solar does like,
Yeah.
solar projects do like a
no issue with that.
well-drained site. Solar panels become less efficient, if there's pools of water under them. So it's in our best interest to maximize our electricity production to maintain good drainage on the site.
And you're required to do that under the Illinois Drainage Code with respect to your neighbors.
I think her question was just about how fast are you gonna be repairing?
Really fast.
Again, I think.
And then is that what's under, I mean, are we gonna put that in here, how long they have to get them prepared?
And I think part of it may be coming from, because it says in here, in part of your rebuttal to this, is saying allowing only 14 days for drain tile repairs unnecessarily burdensome. So if you're gonna say that, that's probably what people are asking for.
14 days immediate.
But if he says, hey, it's gonna happen.
That's the next one.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay. I didn't see an L on
Yeah, I did, yeah, decommissioning,
Bill,
On the
Mayor,
next page.
decommissioning.
EL
Because we're
four.
just talking about the medication.
Oh, I see it. It's on the next page.
sorry, any papers.
So how long is it gonna take you to install the field?
12 to 18 months.
Okay, but you're saying that it needs to take more time to take it down.
We're saying 6 months is not enough time, or could not be enough time potentially, depending on which season of the year this work starts, especially. And so we're just asking that that be aligned with the agricultural impact mitigation agreement to allow for 12 months.
Here doesn't say.
You really need a construction season with the freeze-thaw and the rest of it to, like, if you start decommissioning in April like today, it'd be great. If you start decommissioning 6 weeks ago and it was 30 degrees, that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Kettle of fish,
Well,
so
and
I don't think there'll be any decommissioning going on between November and February in central Illinois. Not that I want to be part of it.
Weather permitting.
you said full installation could take 12 to 18 months from beginning to operation, is that correct? Good, okay, perfect.
L5. Prior conditions to the permit.
We would just request that the A+ requirement be A-. Still, in the same category as AM Best, excellent defined. It's just a lot easier, it's a lot easier to find institutions to supply that as an A minus.
Well, I think that the main concern is we need to know that you're established and financially healthy enough for a 35-year project.
Got it, yeah, and I mean, if a bond is preferred over a letter of credit, like, give that assurance more so, that could work. I think we'd prefer that, we prefer an A minus with a bond rather than an A plus with a letter of credit. I would say.
Okay.
And I also guess, I look at it from, if I got State Farm, if I want to go to A minus and get the general, then, my coverage might not be as good. So I guess that's to put it in an analogy of where I was looking at the A plus rating 35 years from now, whether you have it or you don't have it, for example, I want to make sure that we've covered, that's it. I don't want to go to the general.
Yep, gotcha.
The nice thing about the decommissioning plan is that there's enough metals on the project that would more than cover, like, the cost of decommissioning, call it a construction project, just remove the site, make it look like farm ground again. That's more than paid for by the steel, the copper, the aluminum that's sitting out there. So, speaking from experience, as the village, if somebody said, well, they were A plus today and they went the way of, some folks in 08, right? And they no longer exist, AIG barely survived. The backup is you got a boatload of metals out there that,
But you can't recycle.
oh yeah, absolutely, you can recycle
Maybe
everything.
the poles and stuff, what are you gonna do with panels?
Well, the panels aren't where the money's at, the money's sitting.
I know, I'm saying. if
That's where the
something
money
was
is,
out
get
there,
rid of them.
Years. when
Then those would still be.
Could be.
Well, what I'm
You
saying,
can't guarantee that.
there's enough metals there, I can show you the math on just commodities. I don't know what commodities are gonna be in 35 years, but there are a lot of things that AI replace, metal and copper and aluminum are on that list. So there's a backup plan, if you will. If the world goes to an end and the A plus insurance that you have today goes to D minus tomorrow, you got a backup plan.
You're saying all that will cover labor and the disposal of the panels?
Absolutely. I do it in New York a minute. I just tell everybody, you give me the plant, I'll take care of it, and I would tear the whole thing down myself. That's what I did for 22 years. Lots of metals out there that are recyclable.
I think it gets confusing sometimes too when, the landfills consider the panels and things dirty and, too dirty for the landfill, so, it starts making you think.
That would be 30 years ago, that's an accurate, or could have been inaccurate, but in today's panels, there's not much in a panel that is undesirable for a recycling effort. I want to speak for Emory because he's got a good recycling plan, but they're pretty easy to recycle and there's not bad stuff in them anymore.
So are you saying like the ones that they're putting in, our landfill will take them?
I don't think you put them in landfill, you grab the aluminum and copper out of them, then you put the rest in the landfill. The glass you have there.
But will our landfill take it?
I don't know.
No.
That's what I said. I don't speak for Emory's recycling. I just know that there's not bad stuff in them and they're recyclable. That's
Last
why
I knew, the closest place was Texas, but, like he said, this thing has grown over years, so there's more people, I don't know, and there's places in Illinois.
I do know that there is this wind turbine graveyard in Texas that they don't know what to do with. I think it's because of the materials that those blades are made out of. I mean, it is substantially different material wise, I would think. So yeah, to Chris's point, again, it's aluminum, glass, copper, right, and then polysilicates. So that's what our panels are comprised of. We don't use any cadmium telluride panels, toxic leaching within the panels that we use.
Anything else on? Bond letter credit escrow account? So,
I think our request here is that we issue this prior to building permit instead of at special use permit. One good reason for this is just simply design advancement. Generally, You know, when we come to permitting entities, we will approach when we're around the 60% design phase or maybe 30%. As those designs advance, the numbers on the decommissioning gets more and more accurate, honed in. So when we come for the building permit, that's when we have our issue for construction designs, that is the certain number. And so that's why we just requested that become a requirement of the building permit.
So you would show that to us before we issued the building permit?
Correct, the decommissioning plan, yes,
I
and the
think that's what the
security.
mayor was asking
yes.
for, was to make sure we saw it before the permit was issued, the special use permit.
So we are asking that it be not a part of the special use permit, but a part of the building permit.
Right, she wants,
Yeah,
they want
right.
to make sure the decommissioning plan was before the building permit.
Okay, got it, yes. And then we just have one more, it's the item M. Yep. We just request that the special use permit be for a 35-year term, projects are financed on 35-year terms. That's kind of just like the baseline, the panels are guaranteed 35-year terms, so it all kind of just ties into the 35-year term.
How long is the lease with the landlord?
Those go up to 50.
Because the one you currently have is it 25 or 35?
No, it's 50, but it's not a base 50 term, so it's not a base 50 though, it's.
What is the initial lease?
It's.
The initial lease is 30 years with 2 10-year extensions.
Two extensions, it's 30 years initially. Thank you.
Those are all the ones we had, happy to, you know, keep the discussion.
The, public have anything?
Thank you. You want me to stand up or can I sit here?
Sit there.
Okay, I'm confused. And I've been confused since before this started. And then after hearing some of the comments made, it didn't help my confusion. I'm confused because I thought Tilton, for the betterment of Tilton, was trying to improve their ordinances to cover, this is a new thing, this huge industrial solar. So you're looking at that, you're looking at, you know, you have culverts coming in and all that. So you're looking at a broad scope of things. And yet I feel like sitting through this, it's more of, let's see if we can tailor our ordinances to meet Earthrise's expectations. Earthrise doesn't live in Tilton, and I feel like you all represent the people of Tilton, and I think you're trying to do the very best that you can for Tilton.
We are.
And I understand their interest because they want to become part of this community in this area. But I don't know that it's, I understand you all have to follow the law, but I don't know that you have to, how do I say this nicely, necessarily do what they instruct you to do. Because you're trying to represent solar, maybe some community solar, maybe some warehouse. You're trying to look at the whole thing. It keeps coming back to just Earthrise and this industrial 1,400 acre solar project. So that's why I'm confused. Because I feel like you all do have the right to set ordinances for your community. And since the laws change and technology changes and everything else, you're constantly before the lawyer commented, well, you didn't have that before. No, because this is a whole new thing. That's why you didn't have it before. And you're trying to address that now. And I don't know, I'm not the greatest at explaining what the point I'm trying to get across. So I hope you guys understand my muddled direction here.
So let me try to summarize it, from what I understand what you're saying. And I can understand that, you know, it seems like at this point, we're talking with Earthrise representative on some of their thought processes to what we had with an ordinance. And it's not a scenario that we're here trying to compromise with them or anything else. It is new. We're trying to understand it. I've learned so much in the last few months, with this, probably more than I even want to know, to be honest with you. But in order to protect and serve the citizens of Tilton, I have to have these conversations because it makes me understand where, not only where they're coming from, but also how does it affect the village? How does it affect, just like we've talked about 35 years of decommissioning. They have no idea, they're 6 years old, 7 years old in their process with the company. I have no idea either. So we share that situation. He can't tell me and I can't tell you either. So now we have to get to a point of the risk management portion of it, as you used earlier, to try to make a decision.
But do they understand there's more to it to you guys
I'm
than
sure.
just making them happy? I mean,
Well, I'm sure. I would think, I mean, I'm not sitting here trying to make anybody happy. I'm trying to understand what I'm doing so I can make a decision, an informed decision on something. I do it at work every day, so I have to make sure that I understand what I'm doing before I try to go fix it.
and I appreciate all the time you all and effort you've put into this.
And I appreciate all the comments, because it's more thing, it creates
Yeah.
dialogue. Sometimes it gets going where you don't like to hear things like we talked about earlier, but hearing it from, somebody that's in the field, for example, doing something makes maybe a little bit more sense. And the same thing with, you being an engineer telling us that the transmission lines are humming. It makes a lot of sense to us because we don't know any different.
And we appreciate all you guys because you guys have been dealing with this, Becky, and or in your area. So you guys have a lot more knowledge than we do on this.
So to say,
Forever.
Yeah.
so to say that, to summarize that whole thing, so to summarize it up is that the point of these meetings is not to, okay, you tell me what you don't like so I can make it right. It's to try to understand where they're coming from as well as everybody else. So then when we try to make an informed decision on what's best for our town.
Okay. I
So that's
appreciate
all.
that. Thank you.
Anything else?
And if we had another project that was wanting to come out there, we might have ordinances for that. For instance, we have issues that come up in town. We have to make new ordinances.
Right.
This is new. This is new. This is why we have to have ordinances.
So, yes.
So to compare this to what ordinances we already have for other stuff or don't have is not even, it's not something you can even do.
Everything comes uniquely with risks and benefits and alternatives.
That's right.
So
You gotta look at what
with that being said, does anybody else have anything? So I want to appreciate, first of all, I want to thank you all for coming to have dialogue without any type of, no pun intended, but punches being thrown. It's nice to have that, to be able to, and I think ultimately that's what we wanted tonight. So I appreciate that. Looking forward to the other things that you had to bring back to the table.
Yes.
Do you know when the next meeting will be?
I do not know at this
Yeah.
point. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Oh, I motion to adjourn?
I have a-
Yes.
Oh, no.